WorldNet Daily is live. A total and complete catastrophe last night, or catastrophe, that's how we should pronounce it. Welcome to the program, everybody. It is Friday. We've made it to the end of the week, and we are going to get into last night's incredible interview, the first interview. We've been waiting over a month for this thing to hit, and it finally did. And we'll cover everything from the horrible setup that they had to the flip-flops to the serving up of all the new word salads that the vice president brought us. But also, we are going to touch upon, because the presidency isn't the only thing that's on the ballot in November. In states across the country, you're also going to be seeing some propositions or initiatives, ballot initiatives that are going to be on the ballot. And there's one particular one in New York that we want to highlight for you. And so that is also why we, if we look at who's on our panel today, we have Liz Joy joining us again. Good to see you, Liz, as well as Elizabeth Farah and Josh Turnbow. Good afternoon, everybody. But let's get into last night. I mean, this is the much anticipated interview. I think if it wasn't so anticipated, if she had been talking to the press, since she announced she was going to take the nomination, that maybe this interview wouldn't have been so hyped up. But here it is. Look at that shot. We're going to cover everything here. I mean, you can go over to WorldNet Daily and see some of the coverage there. But where should we start, folks? Should we start with the setup? I mean, what was the setup looking like to you, Josh? You're a guy who works in this industry. Is this how you would have presented the very first interview? Look at this.
Yeah.
Walk us through this here.
It's kind of a dingy, strange setup. We were kind of speaking earlier that maybe, the beginning of the interview, they point outside and oh, we see your Harris sign outside. I think that's kind of why they lit the background, but also the very, very strange placement of Kamala on the kids' high chair, and Tim looks like he's on a booster seat, and it's really weird. I've actually never seen somebody do this with this kind of level of interview, and then it just got better from there.
Yeah, it did. And we have a clip here, I think. Do we have this clip from Jason Miller talking?
Go back to that picture. You didn't mention the water cup with the straw pointing up to her rear end. I mean, underneath her chair. That was
right.
So bizarre. Everything is gray, but Dana or Donna is or Dana, I don't know, is in this bright blue. Kamala is in this gray that is not as flattering to her as other things that she wears. Tim is towering over her. She looks like a little, sort of a child, somebody who's weak. She also looked hunched over. This was a disaster. Her team are incompetent. They're utterly incompetent, and they should all be fired. Not that I want them to be. This was weird.
It was. Oh, you're using that word weird there,
I don't mean it that, I don't want to jump on that bandwagon, but it was. Yeah. I used that term a lot before Tim. So
Right. Well, let's get into some of the substance, if there was any, from this interview. We've got let's show this first clip here. And she was pressed, and I do want to give a little bit of credit to the interviewer here, because she did follow up on some of the questions that she was trying to get at, because Kamala's answers were just so bad. But here's one of the things when she was pressed upon why all of the problems that she's going to solve now haven't been solved in the past 3 years while they were in the seat of power. Let's watch that.
You have been vice president for 3.5 years.
Yeah.
The steps that you're talking about now, why haven't you done them already?
Well, first of all, we had to recover as an economy, and we have done that. I'm very proud of the work that we have done that has brought inflation down to less than 3%. The work that we have done to cap the cost of insulin at $35 a month for seniors. Donald Trump said he was going to do a number of things, including allowing Medicare to negotiate drug prices. Never happened. We did it. So now, as I travel in the state of Georgia and around our country, the number of seniors that have benefited. I was in Nevada recently, a grandmother who showed me her receipts. And before we capped the cost of insulin for seniors at $35 a month, she was paying hundreds of dollars, up to thousands of dollars a month for her insulin. She's not doing that any longer.
You maintain Bidenomics. is a success?
I maintain that when we do the work of bringing down prescription medication for the American people, including capping the cost of the annual cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000, when we do what we did in the first year of being in office to extend the child tax credit so that we cut child poverty in America by over 50%, when we do what we have done to invest in the American people and bringing manufacturing back to the United States so that we created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs, bringing business back to America, what we have done to improve the supply chain so we're not relying on foreign governments to supply American families with their basic needs, I'll say that that's good work.
Wow. A lot of those things, I felt like that's what Trump was been running on for the past 4 years. Liz, I mean, what did you take away from that? There was a lot to sift through and think about, like, wait, from the insulin, prices to bringing jobs and manufacturing back to America. How did that sit with you?
Well, I just think that it's one big gaslighting fest is what they're doing. They've had 3.5 years. They've been an absolute disaster to America. As far as jobs, don't forget on day one, when Biden took office, the very first thing he did was cancel the XL pipeline that immediately cuts thousands of jobs across America. And President Trump did sign in 2017 the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that did give child care credits to all Americans. More Americans were prosperous and had more affordable child care under the Trump administration than any other administration before. Certainly Obama, not in Obama's administration did they have that, and certainly not in the Biden-Harris administration. Don't also forget that for 2 straight years, the Biden-Harris administration helped to keep our schools closed so that during the pandemic, so that parents were home. They weren't even allowed to send their children to school. They couldn't send their children to daycare centers because they were closed. People lost their jobs. Children suffered. There was a dramatic increase in mental illness, a dramatic increase in depression and suicides. She is just not being forthright. I think we know that. Everything that she says is a spin. And nobody's been more destructive to young people and to families than the Biden-Harris administration, where, they have promoted lawlessness and spent an incredible amount of money, where we have dramatically increased by trillions of dollars in our national debt. So I think it's absolutely despicable.
Yeah. And Elizabeth, we keep hearing out of both sides of their mouth how, like, the past, 10 years have been so horrible, but also Build Back Better has been fantastic for the country. So how is a regular American supposed to look at this and square it all together?
Give yourself over to the abandonment of cognitive dissonance. None of it makes any sense. What you should just take away from each one of these word salads and evasions is she's lying. She's going to continue to lie. Their strategy is lie about everything that we have done, lie about everything that we have believed and continue to believe, and then lie about everything that we're going to do. There is nothing that she says in this interview that is simply just true. Nothing is true. She talks about the economy and what they have done. But what they have done is spent trillions of dollars, and she calls it an investment. Mm-hmm. Governments don't invest like you and I and businesses invest. When they just throw money out, and by the way, billions of these dollars just go into the ether. I mean, they go away. You don't see a bridge. You don't see the infrastructure that will support AI. Donald Trump says that we're going to need twice as much energy production to sustain and to thrive in the AI economy. Well, we're not going to see that. We're not going to see nuclear power plants, and we don't see a built-up military that is on its cutting edge. We give away a lot of our military equipment, but we don't see true investments. That's
No.
just again gaslighting.
Yeah. Yeah. And Josh, what say you? What was your takeaway?
Well, one of the major things, Matt, that say, for instance, young people know today. So recently, there was just a study done by Statista, and this is a great company. All they do is do statistics on these kind of things. That previously, the average home price, just I think 5 years ago, was around $138,000, but that's kind of high. That was the average across the country, which includes both really expensive coasts. But to get a house that was around that price, you needed to have the average American income around $74,000 a year. And that's what it was. And now the average home price is $412,000. But the only increase that's come to the American, the average income is $84,000. So you actually, to qualify for the average price of a house, which is $412,000, you need to make $120,000. So that's actually impossible for most Americans, which makes this the most unaffordable housing market in American history. And I don't know if Kamala mentioned that in the interview at all.
No, there's a whole list of, in fact,
Maybe that's part
Donald
of the edited
Trump.
part that they left on the cutting room floor.
Unless you're an illegal alien and
Yeah.
you're in California,
Yeah.
where you're now going to get $150,000 to be able to put down on your home, which is what Gavin Newsom just did.
Right.
Or in
right.
Oregon, where they're going to give you money and then you don't have to pay any of the mortgage payments until you sell the house.
Right. Well, the Trump Vance campaign put out this press release on here's what Kamala Harris didn't talk about with CNN, and that you can see the list down below. Ending cash bailout for violent criminals, her fundraising for the Minnesota Freedom Fund, which freed rioters, everything for her support for defunding police. Comparing policing to slavery, the repeated praise of Bidenomics, on and on and on, support for reparations and decriminalizing prostitution. I mean, the list goes on. These are her values, and she was questioned about her values. Let's watch this clip where CNN here leads comment to question her sort of flip-flopping and where her values are today.
How should voters look at some of the changes that you've made, that you've explained some of here in your policy? Is it because you have more experience now and you've learned more about the information? Is it because you were running for president in a Democratic primary? And should they feel comfortable and confident that what you're saying now is going to be your policy moving forward?
Dana, I think the most important and most significant aspect of my policy perspective and decisions is my values have not changed.
Incredible. It reminds me of like whenever you, I've had moments where my opinion on an issue has changed and it really affected me, and I'm able to tell and even explain it even further when I'm talking to somebody else when they question it. Oh, you believed this once and now you believe this, or what, so you usually have profound moments, and I didn't get that sense from her. Did you, Liz?
No, I think she's obviously very clearly, she's given the talking points of what she needs to say, exactly how she needs to say it. I think that she is a complete Marxist. She's just a complete Marxist. And she is going to take the people's purse, if you will, the taxpayers' money, the hardworking American taxpayer money, and she is going to continue to fund illegals and prioritize illegals over the American people. She's going to prioritize other countries over our own country. She is going to, continue to prioritize giving illegal migrants housing and food and clothing and medical while our veterans are on the streets, and the American people can't pay for their gas and their increased energy costs and their health care and their school supplies, and our children are dying from fentanyl, and we have the 350,000 missing migrant or missing children that have been trafficked here in America. I think that we are in such trouble with Kamala Harris and the Biden administration, and if she gets into office, that I am so gravely concerned that.
Well, you were speechless. I mean,
Yeah,
it truly is.
I mean, I know, and on the flip side of that, of course, I am a devout Christian, and so I have a great faith, and I know that we will be okay.
Yes.
And I know that we're in a spiritual war. And so I know ultimately, we are fine and we are okay. But what is happening in our country and how it was founded and the things that we were founded on have been stolen and usurped, and and our rights are being trampled on.
Yeah. Elizabeth, there seemed to be so much. I mean, you're a good study of people and watching their mannerisms and watching how they speak and their tone and all that stuff. I've seen your analyzation on this is very astute. And what did you think about when she talked about how Joe Biden called her to drop out of the race? And she had this elaborate story about how she was cooking breakfast.
I think it was so weird. Okay, and I really mean this.
Yeah.
I used the word weird before that whole thing. So that'll go away someday and I can use it without, condemnation. But it's so strange that she's talking about bacon and her little grandniece or her nieces and all this, and she had this creepy smile on her face. It just made no sense, and then it just suddenly stopped. I guess we don't have a clip of it because I'm not going to try to quote her, but it was very weird. But I want to go back. That was weird. And by the way, she kept calling him Joe Biden. And I just thought it was strange because when a vice president is trying to elevate and maintain the status of the president under which they serve, they're very careful to use the word, when President Biden called me at this solemn moment, this crisis, and she kept calling him Joe Biden. I just thought it was weird.
It was weird,
Joe
Ben,
Biden
but
because I don't respect him.
Yeah,
and-
but real quick though, when he said that answer, and she said, and then I asked him, "Are you sure?" And he said, "Yes." I'm thinking to myself, this wasn't like he was dropping out of coming to your dinner party. This was like the leader of the free world is not going to run again. And that's the conversation you had. Like, I don't buy it for a second.
No.
And because of that, I don't, of course, haven't bought anything these Democrats say anyway. But that was so
nothing
telling.
honest on this interview. There was nothing, but she didn't. The weird thing again. I'm going to stop using that word.
No, it's good.
The odd thing was that she knew the questions that she was going to be asked. I mean, there was nothing profound or unique about these questions. I would have had, if I was going to be lying about something, this really tight, profound, touching, or interesting answer for that. It was not. It was about like, do you want more bacon? Really? But let me go back to this thing about her change in values, or the fact that her values have not changed, because I think that is so important. Values come from something. They're not just out there sort of independent little data points. They are connected to your worldview, which is usually about a faith or a rejection of faith in God or the particular God that you have faith in. And so values are things like the rule of law versus the rule of men. Constitutional originalism, what did it really mean when they say it? And we know what they meant. Or can it evolve? Is this a living document and it can mean one thing, 5 years from now, today, and 200 years ago? There's, are the people sovereign, which is the truth in America. We are sovereign. The government is not sovereign over us. The states delegate rights. Do parents have sovereign or autonomous authority over their children, or is that the state? These things are deeply held and profoundly important and complex issues. And for her to say that my values have changed, But on one hand, she is eviscerating one policy and replacing it with another. For instance, like giving Medicare and other benefits to illegal migrants that are not citizens of the United States. That is a very deeply value-based decision. So to not have a story to say with joy on your face, you know what? I came to the Lord and it changed everything.
Right.
What I used to believe. Or I finally realized, like with J.D. Vance, you know, he had an explanation of why he once rejected Donald J. Trump and now embraces him because he had proven something to him. And so all of this is a sham.
It is.
It is a sham. And it shows how shallow and stupid this woman is.
And we have a clip from Tim Murtaugh, who was on, I believe, on Fox News, talking about this specific point. Let's watch this clip.
Well, I think clearly the biggest mistake she made, and she made it repeatedly, is when she kept saying that her values haven't changed. And I think that, I'm not sure she is aware of this or not, but that makes her actually more untrustworthy, because what she's basically saying is, oh yeah, sure, for a long time I believed X. Now I say Y. But nothing has changed. And I think her answer on fracking is a perfect illustration for that. It's going to give her big, big problems in Pennsylvania because she says, yeah, sure, I support a ban on fracking. Actually, today, no, I don't support a ban on fracking. And you know what? Nothing has changed. People in Pennsylvania are going to look at that and say, what are you talking about? She might as well be staring into the camera and saying, you can't trust what I say. You know, it took 39 days for us to get to this point. It'll be probably 39 more before she does it again. That's how bad it was.
Yeah, he said it so perfectly. We also have on X. You guys have to go to our X account and find this compilation. This is a fantastic compilation. We don't know who made it. It just ended up on the internet somewhere. So if you made this, then you can go ahead and claim credit. But we're going to spread it around, and we want you to do it too. Let's watch just a little bit of Kamala's values. Let's watch a little bit of her values.
My values have not changed. There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. You know, we have to stay woke. Like, everybody needs to be woke. And you can talk about if you're the wokest or woker, but just stay more woke than less woke.
The people who are convicted in prison, like the Boston Marathon bomber, on death row, people who are convicted of sexual assault, they should be able to vote?
I think we should have that conversation.
What would you do about the millions of, specifically, assault weapons that are already in circulation? What do you do about those?
Well, there are approximately 5 million, to your point, Craig. We have to have a buyback program, and I support a mandatory buyback program. It is outdated, it is wrong-headed thinking to think that the only way you're going to get communities to be safe is to put more police officers on the street.
I mean, yeah, what a blistering video, Josh, and I hope people can go to our X account and share that video.
Is it too much to ask people to just notice that they're lying? Can you do that, folks? Can you just notice that they're lying, and then ask your friends and your relatives to do it too? And maybe we'll have a chance in this election.
Maybe we will. Well, I think we've got a bunch of we got a bunch of clips set up here too. But I also want to make sure we get to our next segment here, because it's very important, the things that are on the ballot in your state, not just the presidency, but these initiatives, these propositions, and so forth. But before we do that, let's watch this David Axelrod clip, and then we'll get to that.
It wasn't a huge. I don't think she moved the ball that much forward.
Oh, where'd it go?
That was it.
Well, that's all
that was it.
I mean, that was enough.
That was a good button to the
it.
segment.
Oh, I was.
He didn't. She said she didn't move the ball forward. So I think that's.
She did.
That's
She
what
did.
we
It's
can
not
do.
the direction we want to go.
Yes, very good.
She moved
Good
it
point.
the opposite way.
You know, in that compilation, and you were bringing up fracking, I would just like to say the fundamental principle of the rule of law. The president doesn't have, and neither does the Congress, have the constitutional powers delegated to them by the states to ban fracking. So the whole question is ridiculous to begin with.
Right.
No federal there is no federal power delegated to ban fracking. That's number one. If it's done within the state lines of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania could just turn, if they had guts and if they knew their own constitution, they would just turn to the federal government and say, really, what are you going to do about it? Because we have the law on our side. And when it comes to guns, guns are the right to self-defense is a fundamental biblical principle. I do not believe Kamala, of course, affirms the Judeo-Christian faith, but to confiscate, and also, by the way, the right to property, thou shalt not steal, is a fundamental commandment of God. To have a mandatory buyback means we will steal your property, and we will also steal from you the inalienable or unalienable right to defend yourself. So her values have not changed. Her values are still godless, and they are Marxist, and they are to be feared and spurned and fought against.
Yeah. And, we also didn't talk about Tim Walz there, but I'm going to dub him the Walz flower because he really didn't add much to the interview as well. He kind of just stepped in.
He just showed himself to be a terrible liar when it came to the questions about his stolen valor.
Right.
And she did not ask the right question, but he was so base in his lying. It was pathetic.
Well, everybody, please go to WorldNet Daily. Watch all the clips there. Watch our feed on X and catch up on all that stuff there, and share it around. This knowledge is power, and it can help turn the tide. So let's move on to these propositions. Now, if you're in a state that has a bunch of ballot initiatives, or you run ballot initiatives in your state, you know how important these things can be sometimes, especially since the left has figured out that all they have to do is give it a fancy title, and then they get to shove in all of the lawyer legalese language into these propositions and dizzy up your mind and kind of dupe you into voting for things. We've seen it happen all the time. It's happening here in my state right now, in the state of Idaho, when it comes to the ballot initiative with ranked choice voting and open primaries, which is a complete disaster. And so, Liz, I want to have you walk us through what's going on in New York with Prop 1, because this thing here is being billed as a way to just protect abortion, and which is already legal in New York. But it says here that it's a sneak attack on parents' rights and free speech.
Well, that is completely true. And I just want to say, before I explain what Proposition 1 is, I really like the commenter here who keeps coming into the comments, Jenny. Jenny, I agree with your comments where you're saying the only way that, Kamala is going to get back into office get into office and win this race is if she cheats. I completely agree with you. And I also agree where you said, that everybody that's paying attention can see that that they are lying, especially because of what the Biden-Harris administration did on day one. So first of all, I agree with you. But moving on to New York State, where we have this, it's a fake name, first and foremost. We have a proposition on our ballots that has been drafted by the New York State Democrat legislature, sponsored by Liz Krueger, Democrat Senator Liz Krueger. I call her the Freddy Krueger of New York, the real life Freddy Krueger of New York. She drafted this legislation, this initiative that is going to be on our ballots. It's called the Equal Rights Amendment. It's a fake name. What this is it steals parental rights. I call it the Anti-Parental Rights Amendment. It's Proposition 1. Here is what this does. Because first and foremost, we already have equal rights in New York. Abortion is already covered. There's no threat in any way, shape, or form to abortion in New York State. Sadly, abortion is legal in New York up until the time of delivery. So that is not going away. That is something that is already, sadly, lawful in New York. That is not a threat. That is not being threatened with this Equal Rights amendment. So that is not changing. That's something that New York already has. But what is in this equal rights amendment, the anti-parental rights, I call it, is the fact that it allows biological males and to be in your daughter's, girls, women's locker rooms, their showers, their bathrooms. It allows them to play in girls and women's sports from young ages, by the way. This changes the age in New York State. So this could be, your young toddler preschool, bathrooms, restrooms, games and sports all the way up through completely through every college and women's sports. It grants, here's the thing, it grants minors 18 and under, this grants minors the right to medical treatments and procedures. I'm just reading it. I want to make sure that I don't leave anything out here. It grants minors the right to medical treatments and procedures, including gender transition drugs and or surgeries, hear this, without parental consent. Without parental consent.
Now, Liz, does and is this in this proposition is like, are these things in that proposition, or is the framework going to allow for this? I mean, that's kind of like where that's kind of where
allows for it. Here is why. Because it changes age. Age is no longer, that's correct, you've got it right there. It no longer describes, say, 18 and over. There is no description for age. So age can be your toddler preschooler now. It's so wide open, right, for interpretation all the way up through. It does allow this under this Equal Rights Amendment. It guards the privacy of any minor child that voices confusion, that voices any comments. It covers gender expression. So the language that is now going to be put into the Constitution, it does in the New York Constitution, it does insert new language for age, gender expression, gender identity. So if your minor child is in school voicing any comments, any expression, the school has the right to take your child, begin gender transition drugs, treatments, could also be surgeries without parental consent. Why? How are they going to do that? I'm going to tell you, because there was already a bill in the New York Senate and the New York Assembly that says that you can sign minors up who want to have transition surgeries, begin psychological treatment, get counseling, and transition medications. You can sign them up, get this, on Medicaid, minor children, without parental consent, even while your child remains on your private health insurance plan. So parents in New York, while you've got your private health insurance plan for your child and you're the one that's responsible, say, for covering, flus and doctor visits and, medicines and antibiotics and whatnot, they can sign the New York government and the New York schools can sign your child up for Medicaid, take them for counseling, drugs, treatments, begin these transgender transitioning or gender transitioning drugs without your consent, because on Medicaid, they now enforce the HIPAA laws, which are the privacy laws to your medical plan. And so that when a parent asks, what's going on with my child? They're not allowed. They are barred. They're completely barred from saying anything to the parents.
And folks, this is going to all be, if this passes, this will all be in the Constitution. And once something gets in the Constitution, it's very hard to reverse this. So
what I say to parents, this is what parents need to decide. New Yorkers, listen up. On Proposition 1, the fake name, Equal Rights Amendment. Here is what you need to decide. Do you want to surrender all of your parental rights to the New York state government and the New York school system. That is what the Equal Rights Amendment does. It changes nothing on abortion. That's already in the New York State, Constitution. People are already guaranteed that. This is a parental rights violation, and we will never be able to get it back if this passes. Vote no on the Equal Rights Amendment.
Yeah. Elizabeth, you've been following this stuff for a long time too. And I just, when the left does this, when they co-opt language, when they create new words and they take our, equal rights amendment, who can be against equal rights amendment? And they shove all this stuff in there. Yeah. We can't hear Elizabeth. Yeah. We can't hear Elizabeth, but Josh, what do you think about that? How the left is always manipulating the language in this way.
Sorry Elizabeth, go for it.
Well, I was just saying, and also like the Inflation Reduction Act, that kind of thing. This insidious, godless mindset is pervasive on the left. This goes back to like Sparta, and all the children were raised as Spartans in their military barracks and removed from parents. This goes back to communism in its rankest form, the ugliest, most degrading, dehumanizing concepts in communism is that parents are not truly the authority and the possessor of all rights as regard to their children, that the state has supreme rights over parents and can remove them and make vital life destructive decisions based on the autonomy, the sovereignty, and the philosophy and the values, Kamala, of the state. Now, we're talking about New York here, but this is a major issue in Minnesota. And of course, in California, as already mentioned, but Tim Walz has affirmed this, that even a concerned non-relative in Minnesota can seek the authority to take parental rights from the parents of a family that's in, say, Nebraska, because they want to give gender-affirming care in Minnesota to their niece. And they can sever parental rights in Minnesota based on the desire to help them make a transition of sorts. This is demonic. This is satanic. This is so godless and evil. And this is what we're up against. If you're a voter who is not registered, register to vote. If you're lazy on the day of the election, then make sure you've got an accountability partner. Everybody has to come out to the polls and vote the right way, because this is about light versus darkness, truth versus evil.
Absolutely. And that's the key here we want people to realize is, like, when these propositions are on the ballot, they do it in these big time years, with the election. You got Trump, Biden, Harris, whoever's going to be on the ticket, and they know that they're going to get the maximum amount of people out there, and that all they have to do is spend I'm sure the yes on one, Liz, folks, the yes on one people have tens of millions of dollars to put behind these propositions across the country, these leftists. And we showed a clip of you earlier standing at a rally, it looked like, at a podium. I think we still have we have some of that. But I wanted to point out here is some of the video that I've seen of you guys out there. It's grassroots. You guys are just trying to get the stuff, this information out there. And I'm so glad
Liz,
that we're able to bring this up to light here.
Do you think
what's your outlook?
I'm very concerned because, number one, I believe it's going to be on the back of the ballot. A lot of people don't turn their ballots over. Number two, we have very far left media here in New York State, with the exception of the New York Post and maybe the Wall Street Journal. But the media for the rest of the media is pretty leftist here in New York State. And I think that the name is so deceiving that when people see it, Equal Rights Amendment, oh my gosh, of course, who's not for equal rights? I mean, I'm for equal rights,
course.
So it's like, you see something and you're like, yes, of course I'm for equal rights. So my concern is that it's on the back of the ballot and that people don't have any idea what the name actually means, what they're actually voting for, because they haven't done the digging and there's not a full explanation of what is in this proposed change to the New York Constitution.
Well, there is oh, go ahead.
I personally think if New Yorkers were well informed to know what this is doing, it would overwhelmingly, including people that are considered, liberals, it would overwhelmingly fail. It would overwhelmingly fail.
Well, let's make sure that happens. Where can people go to find out more information, to get information to share with their neighbors and their friends? What's the best place to follow you and to follow this fight against Prop 1 in New York?
Honestly, they can go right to my Twitter page. I have been keeping people updated right there. And you can find all of the information on it. You can find many of the propositions, I think, or the picture of the proposition that you held up. I've done so many interviews on this to try to get this out, as well as other coalitions that are coming together on there. There's one is Uniting New York State. Another one is called, I think it's Teachers for Choice.
Can you organize a debate?
I have thought about that. I want to debate Liz Kruger, the real Freddy Krueger of New York, who
Well,
wants
remember
to
this. Phyllis
cut off
Schlafly, I
children's
remember this so
body
clearly
parts.
when I was younger, in the 70s, defeated the Equal Rights Amendment, and that's a federal Equal Rights Amendment, and it was so overwhelmingly supported until she exposed the lie and the consequences of passing that amendment. And here's this one homemaker running around the states, and she literally, probably, you could credit her with singularly defeating that. You should probably look at her strategies as to what
I will
she
call. I will publicly ask Liz Kruger for a
Do it.
debate. I don't think she'll say yes, but I will.
Yeah, well, they've
I
learned
live
a lot.
Right here. I live right here in the capital region of Albany, New York. I live, right here, and so I will ask, Freddy Krueger to come and debate me. And
Well, Liz, you are a warrior. We so appreciate you joining us today on this Good Friday to spread the word and get that stuff out there, because this is a very important issue. And folks, I encourage you, if you're in a state, don't just pay attention to the presidential election. Look at those propositions, find out what's going on, because you know that the left is using these to usher in their wokeism. And as Kamala said, they want, whether you're woker, the wokiest, whatever it is, we gotta stop this. We gotta fight back as always. So, Elizabeth, where can people follow you on X? We want to make sure that people are doing that.
Are you talking about Elizabeth or okay.
Elizabeth Farah?
I was called Liz most of my childhood,
okay.
so I was confused. Well, I'm on X at Elizabeth Farah. I'm not on Facebook. Couldn't care less about them. And that's it. And WorldNet Daily, of course, is my company. And by the way, I'm going to have to be taking a sabbatical. I've got an assignment, a special assignment, so you won't be seeing me here for a while. I will be working on something that'll be very exciting, an interview show called Kamala's America, and it's essentially breaking down the consequences of the nightmare that Kamala's America would be. And experts and commentators, senators, congressmen, to speak to each individual category of outrage that you would impose upon this country in her effort to destroy it and remake it as a Marxist utopia.
Well, Elizabeth, that's breaking news to me. That's not on my list. I did not know
I
you were.
should have mentioned
I
it.
can't wait to see it.
Like you're breaking up with me. You're breaking up with me for a while.
It's an early announcement.
I was
Early
going to
announcement.
text
Well,
you
it's-
earlier, but
It's very exciting. I mean, that's very important. It's very exciting, and I'm glad that you are on the case. So that I look forward to that, and everybody will hopefully look forward to that. Josh, yes, WND Newsroom, right? Over at Rumble?
Yeah, go to Rumble, everybody. Like, subscribe, comment in there too if you want. There's I noticed there's a kind of a strange fellow commenting in there today. Comment on his comment. We'd love to see some interaction there. And of course, follow us on X. X gets better every month. Elon keeps making it cooler. It's going to have a lot more videos soon. Follow us there. We have every take and every breaking story is there. And of course, worldnetdaily.com is where you can find all of our amazing articles. And we thank you for watching.
Yes, thank you so much, folks. You can follow me at TrueMattEdwards on X. We will see you next week. Have a fantastic weekend, and God bless you all.
God bless you.